Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Timothy Cardinal Dolan.
Thank you. Good to be with you. Thanks, all. Bill, thank you. I'm very proud of you, and I'm very proud of the Sheen Center on a night like this. I'm not by myself, everybody. You know who's here? DeVon and Roxann and Chrissy. Come out, and I'm lonely out here. Come here. Way to go. You got more applause than I did. All right. You know, this film is magnetic. It's exciting. The people are talking about it. And this is interesting, folks, because as Bill just explained, this center is named after the great Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen. And in the 50s, none of you you don't remember that. I can as a kid. But he had, for 5 years, he had a program on Wednesday nights that won an Emmy that outranked Milton Berle. All right, Milton Berle, he was on the other channel to Milton Berle, and he got more viewers. And Milton Berle said once to him, Archbishop Sheen, why do you get more viewers than I do? And he says, well, I have better writers than you do. And Milton Berle said, well, who are your writers? He said, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Anyway, the name of Archbishop Sheen's show was Life is Worth Living. That's the theme of this magnificent movie that you're about to see for the first time. I don't know about you, but I think two values that we really need to hear about today would be the dignity and sanctity of human life, that when God gives life, he intends it to last forever, and the power of prayer. The power of prayer. And both of those come through radiantly in this magnificent movie. I thank all of you for being here this evening as I welcome you to the Sheen Center. I really appreciate our benefactors, the geniuses behind this film, and the sterling actors. You're going to enjoy it. Glad you're here.
Chrissy Metz. Thank you so much. Oh, yeah, exciting. I'll tell you, my wife is so jealous. She is a huge fan of This Is Us.
Please tell her I said hello.
Well, I keep telling her that, I may get to spend all the time with you, but she gets to spend the entire night with the moderator, but that didn't really...
She's like,
nah, it's not the same thing.
She loves you, don't
Absolutely.
worry. Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank all three of you for being here tonight, and thank you for allowing us to show your film. This is one of those impossible true life stories that if a screenwriter sort of sat in his basement and came up with it in his own head, Hollywood executives would have said, no one's going to believe this. But what were your initial thoughts about this film? Why did you want to make it, and why did you want to direct it?
I wanted to make the film, I think for the same reason that everyone, is responding to it. It's just unbelievable. When I heard it for the first time, I was promoting Miracles from Heaven, and I was on a program, and the real family, Joyce, Jason, and Pastor Jason and John were being interviewed about the story. And when I heard it, I was backstage. I said, this can't be real. But I saw John, I met him, I said, this is unbelievable. And so afterwards, we had a conversation. I said, I'd love to help tell your story. And what I really wanted to know was what was beyond the prayer. And everything you saw in the film tonight was very accurate. John struggled with his identity and why he wasn't wanted prior to the event. And when he came out of the event, he still struggled. And once he came into the realization that it was the prayers of his mother and the prayers of the community that saved his life, it really helped validate his purpose. And that, for me, was why I wanted to do it. Because I think that we all struggle with our purpose, and we all struggle with our place. And so whether or not we're adopted, we all still try to fit in, and we wonder where we fit in life. And so this movie reminded me that I have a place, and that no matter what you go through, people care about you. Because sometimes when you're in life, it's hard, and you think, man, I'm out here by myself. But this movie and this story really reminded me that we're not alone. None of us are, and that's why I wanted to do it.
Sure.
Ditto.
Oh, we're not going to let you off that easy.
Thanks.
Yes, you got it.
No, I read this script and I was just so blown away by it, and immediately began to do the research into it can't be real, really, and just the more that I read about it, and then I would tell people about the story. I said, have you heard about the story? And everyone's response was the same. I would talk about it, and they would go, oh my God, I just got chills. You know, people responded to it with so much emotion, and I just felt there was an opportunity here to really connect with an audience and really try to, the same theme that you're talking about, so many people do feel alone, and this is really about community and the power of prayer and what we can do for each other together. And I think we're now living in a society that we can feel so isolated and alone. And I think a movie like this has the potential to really reach out and touch people, I think, on another level. At least the script did when I read it, and I hope the film does when you see it, because that's what I was hoping for.
Now, Chrissy, this film sort of resonated with you on a different, deeper personal level, because I know you've spoken publicly and you wrote about it in your book that your mom had undergone a health scare of her own. Did navigating that very, I'm sure, emotionally tumultuous time, did you draw from that to understand the character of Joyce?
Oh, 100%. Also, ironically, when I first had the meeting, there, verbatim almost, what I said to my mother's doctors were, you don't know my mother, and we're not going to speak any negativity, any negative thought around my mom. And almost verbatim, Joyce said that to John's doctors, and I was like, oh. There was sort of like this connective charge that sort of happened at that moment in the meeting, and I was like, okay, all right, if I'm the girl for the job, I think I'm ready. I think I've had this really difficult experience to hopefully bring and inspire hope in other people. When doctors give a prognosis, they don't know, right? They're practicing, so they don't know. They give a prognosis, and he did know my mom, and it was something that I could relate to. Also personally, because there were times that I needed someone to believe in me when I didn't believe in myself. And also to portray a real woman who has gone through so much of her, on her own, and prior to even having adopted John, and then to go through all of this sort of on her own, and I mean, of course, with the help of God. And then the whole moment when she decided to surrender and trust, I mean, I know that wholeheartedly, personally. So yeah, there were so many things that resonated for me.
Roxann, this, in reading about you and your career, you're also an adoptive mom yourself. You have an adopted daughter. Is it a daughter?
Yes.
Daughter. So did that help you as a director understand both Joyce and John?
Yes, I think it was one of the things that really resonated for me when I read the script, because some people think that if you have an adopted child, that maybe you can't love that child in the same way that you would a biological child. I often, when people come up to me and I say I have an adopted daughter, they go, oh, that's so great for her. And I go, no, that's so great for me, actually. It's like what she's done in my life is amazing. In my office, I have two pictures. One is a picture of me when I was handed my biological child right after I had given birth. The other picture is when I was handed my adopted child, Mia, in China at 8 months old, and my expression is the same. There is no difference. And I think that what I loved about this is when you see Joyce's love for John, and on top of that there was an adoption involved there. So she is loving a child that is not biological, but that love is so strong. It just speaks to our definition of love on a whole other level. It goes beyond blood, and then when you see the community come through, and you see what it does to people, that to me is at the heart of the script. So yes, I very much felt a connection there with John and my daughter.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
And by the way, they both met each other.
Oh, did they really?
The real John and my daughter Mia, we all went out to dinner when he was out in LA, and it was really cool to see them both sitting there, being able to share their experiences.
Oh, that is beautiful. Now, in a lot of the interviews that I saw you giving for the film, you often get asked the same question, do you believe in miracles? Which they always say yes. But one of the responses, DeVon, that I heard you give was really interesting. You said that making a movie in itself is a miracle of sorts because so much stuff has to fall into place. It's almost providential. And I would think that's even more so when you're trying to make a film that's unabashedly in its affirmation of faith and the power of prayer. Can you talk a little bit about that, about navigating that intersectionality between faith and movie making and some of the challenges it may present?
Yeah, I think for me, it goes back to the story. So even when you look at a faith perspective, God could have chosen any way to articulate the values that he wanted us to ascribe to in the earth. He chose stories. The Bible is predominantly a book filled of stories to articulate virtue and vice. And so when it comes to making films, especially in this space, it's really important to let the story do the work. And when you're telling a true story, it's so important to just let the true story speak for itself and not try to impose something on it. And I think with us developing the script and producing, we were just trying to be true to Joyce, John, Pastor Jason, and what they went through. That's the number one thing. It's interesting because Grant, our screenwriter, who's amazing, I'm sure he wouldn't mind if I say this, but when I was developing the script, I got a draft of the script, and I totaled up the number of times that the word God and prayer were used. And in one draft, believe it or not, it was 90 times. And I said to Grant, if you're using God and prayer this much, you are not yet telling the story. Don't use these words as a crutch for those who understand what you mean. We must hold ourselves to the rigor for those who do not know, so that when they come in, they experience what we're trying to articulate, and we don't use shortcut words like God or prayer for those who may not really understand what that all means. And so we reduced it to less than 10 mentions so that the story could come alive. So whenever I'm working on a story or producing a story, especially a true story, I don't want to go with, here's what I'm trying to get across. Well, no, what's the story trying to get across? And then how can we be good megaphones for that? And to the point about a miracle, I mean, listen, I know this looks amazing. This was hard, okay? This was hard. Truly, we had a draft of the script November of 17, is that right? And in December of 17, I hired Roxann, myself in the studio, and then we went to scout. We went to Winnipeg to scout. And we were in Winnipeg, and we realized once we got there that Winnipeg was the only place in North America where we could find a frozen lake in February in order to shoot. So we come back from the scout, and we're like, okay, ready to make the movie. The studio said, well, we're not greenlighting your movie until you get Chrissy Metz. True story. So we had to go get Chrissy Metz. And we met with Chrissy and, and her team and so on and so forth. And there's a whole lot of interesting conversation in the book. We're going to put that about what happened. But God prevailed, right, Chrissy? Yes, he did. We got her in the movie. And then when we got her in the film, it was January. We had to actually start shooting the sequence. Wasn't it in February? Yeah, we had to shoot the frozen lake. So when you saw John and his friends on the ice, we shot 2 days on a frozen lake below freezing temperatures. Video Village was on the ice. Now, I know y'all think it gets cold here in New York. I guarantee you it has nothing on Winterpeg. That's what they call it, Winterpeg. And what was so amazing is we did 3 more days. Was it 3 days or 4 days in the tank?
Oh, in the tank, yes. It was 2 more days.
Yeah, we did more tank work in order to get the underwater shots. And then we were shooting with kids. So you can't shoot all day with kids. Kids are protected. We wish that they weren't. We want to shoot all day, but they were. So all of these challenges, but, Roxann did such a great job of, really being the captain of the ship. And, Chrissy, we didn't even get Chrissy until 2 weeks after we started shooting because she was finishing up This Is Us. So we had to find all these other things to shoot. And the first scene that we shot was her going in to pray. Unbelievable. So this is just a sampling of miracles that we experienced on the film. One other thing that was unbelievable during production. So we go scout the hospital, and there we are. The whole crew is there, and we're scouting the waiting room. Is this amazing?
Oh, yeah, this is cool.
We're scouting the waiting room, and, we're there looking and, trying to figure out if we can get the shot. And while we're there, it's still a real hospital, so patients are there and doctors and nurses. So just as we're about to wrap up, a nurse comes out and she looks at her board and she says, Joyce, true story. And there was a Joyce there in the waiting room, went back with the nurse.
And we all just stopped. We all looked at each other and we went, I guess we found the right place.
We knew it. We knew it. So these are all miracles that were happening, you know, that gave us confirmation we were on the right path.
Was there a bush burning in the parking lot or something?
There might have been. There might have been.
That's right. That's right.
In the winter.
There we go. Exactly.
Well, I mean, what you say is so true. I mean, so many well-intentioned filmmakers, particularly in the Christian filmmaking community, often confuse trying to tell a story with preaching a sermon, and those are two different things. And I think you always talk in the articles that I read about trying to create an emotional experience and trying to hopefully make viewers walk away, whether they're believers or not, with a sense of hope, something everybody can identify with. And I think that really comes across in this film, that certainly this film will resonate with, you know, believers, but I think it also touches on a lot of mainstream themes that are universal in their appeal. I mean, one of them that comes up often is vulnerability, and obviously you talked about belonging, but being vulnerable reminded me of when I was reading your book. You talk a lot about that in your book. This is us. Not this is us. This is me. Sorry, wrong pronoun there. This is me.
But it was on purpose.
This is me. And you know, you were talking about your early hardships in acting, and it reminded me of the classic story where the legendary soprano Beverly Sills was on the Dinah Shore show, and Dinah Shore called her an overnight success. And she says, "I've been singing for 10 years. That was some long night." You know? And I think you said that on the way to your This Is Us audition, you had like 81 cents in your bank account.
Correct.
So did you take some of that vulnerability from your own past, your own experience, and did you draw from that as you were trying to understand the role of Joyce?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's what we all want to be and we all strive to be, but the ego and the pride really kind of get in the way. And, well, aspiring actors don't really have an ego and pride sometimes because, well, 12 years in the making is, it'll diminish that for sure. But also, I understand the through line of feeling inadequate or feeling, you know, John felt that he wasn't purposeful or he couldn't relate and he was different from everyone else. And all of those through lines we all can relate to. Like, we all want the same thing, which is to be loved. So we do all these sorts of things to have acceptance, to be validated, to funnel the feeling to love. And that's ultimately how I try to live my life and the projects that luckily I'm affiliated with. So yeah, I mean, vulnerability, the only way you can get through is through vulnerability. So.
Did you feel any added responsibility, the fact that you're playing a real life person?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And then, you know, after meeting the family, they couldn't have been more gracious and loving and kind. But I was like, oh dear. You know, I want to honor this really important, incredible message and these lives that have been forever changed. So yeah, there is a responsibility. We all felt that, I'm sure, very much. But I think that they were pleased. I
Oh
think
my
so.
goodness!
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
Is
very
have
pleased.
they seen the movie? And I assume they
Yeah,
have.
I sat in the small screening with just them and me, and and Joyce was in tears at the end of it, and just turned around and grabbed my hand and said, "You got it." So that was.
So that must have made you feel great.
Yeah, that was.
Ooh, you gotta get emotional.
And there's so many wonderful moments in the film. I was almost curious, like, how much of those things, I mean, obviously the broad strokes, it was very accurate, but did you come up with some moments for poetic license? Like the scene that struck me the most was when she first walks into the ICU unit and she holds his feet and she has that very quick, almost brief flashback of holding his infant feet. And it just struck me because, you know, when I go home at night, if my son's asleep, I do the same thing. I'll go into his bedroom and just hold his feet. And it was such a wonderful little moment. Did those little moments, did you get those
Joyce
from
did go to his feet, and she talks about it. And then when I talked to some of the nurses there, they said that's very normal. It's something that parents do, you know. It's so, but she did, and I think she even discusses that in her book as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the book's name is Impossible, I think the
Yeah.
book, yeah. You know, I was wondering, what I love about this film too is that, again, while it certainly will resonate with believers, Christians specifically, it doesn't pander to stereotypes. The Christian characters don't have all the answers. They struggle. They don't have that ready-made scripture verse ready to answer any problem that they encounter. And even more surprisingly, the non-believer characters are not stereotypes either. They're treated with respect. In fact, the ER rescuer is not only a decent, but he's a heroic figure. So was that an intentional decision going into the making of this film?
It was intentional to render those characters in the way that they actually experienced what we portrayed. So, what you're seeing is honest and it's accurate. And what happened with that firefighter, Tommy Shine, he still is searching. Even now, he's seen the film. He really likes the film, but he's still searching. Pastor Jason is Pastor Jason. All of these, Joyce is Joyce. John is John. I mean, it was amazing that, John, when he saw it, he's like, wow, Marcel got my mannerisms. Joyce said the same thing about Chrissy. They actually, John and Marcel actually had a one-on-one basketball game on set. Yes. And Marcel won. But they're going to do a rematch. But it's really important to, for me, when I'm making a true story, it's a movie for me. It's their life. Forever. This will be their eternal representation on this earth. Because movies are eternal until Jesus comes, right? So until then, this is how people are going to know them. So for me and for us, we felt a great responsibility to not impose things on them that was not indigenous to the character. Now, whenever I'm telling a true story, there's a difference between the truth and the facts. Here's what I mean by that. The documentary is for the facts. The movie is for the truth. So the movie is without a doubt the truth. But in terms of every single fact, that's where you have to take some creative license and condense time and whatnot. But we stand by each portrayal because the portrayals are very honest and represent the people that we're trying to portray. And the reality is that we do struggle. I don't want to go to a movie where I see a person of faith having all the answers and no struggles. I'm like, what planet are you on? And come on, anybody, let's have an honest moment. Anybody struggle? Anybody just, come on, don't get quiet on me, Sheen said. Anybody struggle? Come on, wave your hand. Just let me see all the struggle in the house, see? Come on, right? We got faith and we struggle too. That's why we need faith. If we weren't struggling, why do we need faith, right? We have to believe in something we don't see because we don't currently have in our reality something that we need. And so we wanted to portray the movie honestly. And that's where the power is. Even asking the question, why does God choose to save some and not others? None of us have that answer, but we're not afraid to ask the question. Yeah. Because when we can ask and even question our faith, I think that's when the real power of it's revealed. Because so often we get so fragile, we don't want to talk about things we don't understand. That's the beauty of life. God is a mystery. Faith is a mystery. Even if you're a faith or not, you walk out of this movie saying, how did that happen? And that's powerful, that we're wrestling with these big ideas and concepts that I think make life more enjoyable, not less so.
John Paul II once said that movies are more than entertainment. They're shapers of values and ideas. And you're someone who obviously knows both about faith and about movie making. And you write a lot about that in your new book, The Hollywood Commandments. Father's Day is right around the corner. There you go. You got it.
I didn't pay him for that plug.
Not at all. But in that, there's such a growing industry of faith-related movies. And I'm wondering where that's heading. I think it was the great theologian Wayne Gretzky once said that he doesn't skate to where the puck is, he skates to where he knows the puck is going to be. So as a filmmaker of faith, where do you think the future of faith-based filmmaking is heading?
My hope and my prayer is that it's heading to a place where we just begin to tell stories. And what I mean by that is that when you go back to the Bible, I did a talk at a convention once, and on the screen I put these words. I put, murder, violence, these different R-rated, content, adultery, all this. And I said, you would think I'm talking about a Hollywood movie. I said, I'm not. I said, I'm talking about the Bible. I said, so as filmmakers and as storytellers of faith, why would we tell movies that are less truthful than the Bible? So for me, when I think of the future, I want to continue to legitimize the space because so many people look at the space and it's like, oh man, we don't want to make one of those. So the space has a stigma on it. And my hope is that we can break free of that stigma. so that these films are just a part of the movie-going experience, that they're just a part, the same way you can go see a horror film or a comedy, that these movies legitimately are a part of the Hollywood fabric in a way where they can do a wide range of things. I think too often with a movie of faith, we try to create a narrow spectrum.
Yeah.
I want the spectrum to be broad. There's so many different types of stories that can be told that are inspirational, uplifting, and have faith. So my hope is the future will allow for a broadening of the space. And not every single film has to be a PG film, and not every single film has to check a certain number of boxes. You know, when you look at the Bible, I mean, there's everything in the Bible because the Bible has a spectrum of stories that relate to so many different people. And my hope and prayer is that movies in the future of this ilk, in 5 and 10 years, that you'd be shocked to see the growth. I mean, what about a superhero movie? You know, like, why not? Let's do it. Let's not let everything just be, you know, what it has been. Let's create something that's never been done before. And I do hope and believe that a success like Breakthrough can do that. Never before have we had this kind of star power. You know, look at that. Never have we had it. You know, this type of direction. I mean, people are coming to us saying this is the best film they've seen in the space because we really put together the production value. We wanted to make sure the storytelling was there. So my hope and prayer is that in the future, more filmmakers will do the same thing and also find their voice.
Yeah.
Too often in the faith space, people are trying to be like others. If everybody just finds their voice, we can do what needs to be done by allowing each one of us to be successful in our own way.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. You know, the author, Madeline Engel, once said, there's no such thing as Christian art, non-Christian art. There's just good art and bad art. And I think that's, you know, more people need to understand that. Speaking of that, I witnessed something before the screening that you don't get to see much in the film industry. In the little reception beforehand, when Cardinal Dolan was here, the 4 of you were praying for a moment. And obviously that's prayer. The power of prayer is a central theme in this film. So if I can ask, how has the journey that you took together in making this film affected your own prayer life? I mean, you're all, 3 of you are people of faith. Has this experience working together affected your prayer life in any way?
Oh, you know, I think in so many ways, just confirms what I already knew, but also that, you know, I think prayer gets such a stigma. It's like, oh, you're praying? Oh, what does that mean? What does that mean? And you're like, there are people gathered with the same thought, putting in positive energy into this collective consciousness. That's it. You know, it has like this scary stigma, and it's so, it's unfortunate because our minds are so powerful and our hearts are so vast that like, it's what it's used for. So for me, it's just like, oh, I pray all the time. I mean, hundreds of times a day for anything, boldly, in a silly way, to get across the street safely. I mean, everything, everything, because I need help. Like, I don't have this life thing figured out, so please help me. So it's just, I've never really cared what people think about me, but I really don't care what people think about me when it's my connection to my higher power and God. So I think I do it more often, which oh, thank you. I was like, is someone okay? Is everyone okay? It's gonna come and rescue you, but yeah.
You just said a quick
thank
prayer.
you, thank you, thank you. Yeah. Sorry, I was worried.
You said a quick prayer.
Yeah, I was like, please. I did.
I think talking about prayer has gotten that kind of a response.
Thank you. The truth.
Wow, you know, for me, this journey has definitely deepened my relationship to the way that I pray, and also just the way that I exist on a daily basis. I think I felt so blessed to get this job and to be able to tell this story. That I came from this place of complete and utter gratitude. And you have to go, well, what am I grateful for? Who am I grateful to? And then you realize that that would be God. And I realized that there wasn't a single day that I was working on this that I didn't feel that he was with me. And there were moments where you get insecure, you know, you're taking risks, you don't know, you know, it's a difficult thing to navigate, you know, directing this kind of thing in 32 days and with all the weather things and everything. And any moment of uncertainty or concern, I just remembered that I wasn't alone. And it's almost like my hand was being held and like it was okay, you know, and I knew that it would be okay. What wouldn't be okay is if I turned away from that. So when I became insecure, when I became lost, all I had to do was grab his hand, you know, and I wasn't alone, and the answers would be there for me. I don't think I've ever felt that, especially for a very continuous period of time in my life, and that's what this film brought to me to make it. You know, it really strengthened that relationship for me.
That's deep.
Okay, I'm like,
Man, come on, Bishop Dawson, come on.
like, oh,
Yeah, I mean, listen, I mean, I look at this and I still can't believe it.
No, we can't.
I cannot believe it because, you know, when you look at my journey, you know, I've been in entertainment since I was 18 years old. I've always dreamed of, you know, making my own movies, running my own company. And so, you know, for years I had the faith, but never had it manifested into reality until I quit my job as an executive working for Sony, started my company. And the first movie I produced was Miracles from Heaven, you know, but I was producing that with other producers. And, you know, I felt like it was time to break free and really start a new identity at a new place. And so I left Sony, you know, where I had my production deal, and I started at Fox. And, you know, people said, "You're crazy. What are you doing? You have such goodwill there." And I just felt like, you know what, this is where I'm supposed to be. And then I get to Fox, and next thing you know, they start selling the company, you know. And I said, God, you have a funny sense of humor. But here's what's amazing, and why I know prayer works and faith works. It works because, you know, finding the story, there was nothing. We were just sitting on a stage, listening to a story just like this, and then it was like God said, "This is your movie." So it was like, okay, God, I hear you. But what am I going to do? I don't have a screenwriter. I don't know who could actually write this story. Out of the blue, seemingly, our screenwriter, Grant, who I worked on 7 Pounds with, he wrote that script for Will Smith. I was one of the executives on that film. He wrote that film 10 years ago. Out of the blue, he emails me a script. He says, "Hey, are you still doing movies? I'm producing a script. Do you want to do this?" I read the script and like, "Well, no, this is not what I want to do." I said, "But do you still write?" And he said, "Yeah, but you know, I've been kind of disenfranchised with the business." I said, "Dude, let me show you something. I got something for you." So I sent him some links on the story. He watches the links. He reads the articles. He says, "I'm in." He said, "I love this story." So we worked on the pitch. I get my deal, set up my deal at Fox. I tell the chairman of Fox, "This is the movie I want to make." They're like, "Great, we'll do it." I work with Grant. I'm like, "Grant, we got to go into the studio and pitch." Grant says, "I suffer from anxiety. I can't go in and pitch." I said, "What? What are you talking about?" I said, "I've never had a studio hire a writer that they didn't meet." I said, "Okay." I just prayed. I said, "Okay, Lord. Okay. He never gives us more than we could bear." So I go to the studio and I say, "Look, y'all. I got a writer. Here's the treatment, but he's not going to come in and pitch. And here are the links to the story. Trust me on this." So they read the treatment. They said, "Okay, we're going to do it." So true story. So I said, "Grant, listen, we're going to negotiate your deal, but do me a favor. You know, just start working it out. You know, you don't have to get too deep into the script, but start laying the framework for it." He's like, "Yeah, no problem." It takes months to negotiate his deal. And then it takes another 2 months in order for the paperwork to be done, and he signs. So then I go to Grant. I say, "Okay, well, how far are you on the script?" "I haven't started." "What do you mean you haven't started?" He's like, "Well, man, you know, I haven't been in the business for a long time. I didn't know if I could trust you." So, true story. So, but hold on, it's got a good ending, clearly. So I'm like, I was, let me tell you, I had to pray. I said, "Lord, help these other words that are not speaking in tongues. Keep them in, Lord. Lord, I'm about to get out of character right now." So I said, "Okay." I said, "All right, man. Well, okay. Could you start writing now?" He said, "Yes." Long story short, here's why it's so relevant. By the time we get the script, which was November of 2017, and we were, you know, talking about doing the movie, and the movie ended up moving divisions. We ended up doing the film through Elizabeth Gabler and Marissa Pive at Fox 2000. And what was so amazing is that once we got Roxann on board, talking about the power of prayer, I knew that in November, if we were not in production, if we were not in prep, in really 60 days, no possible shot for this movie to happen. By the time we got to the place where the studio was talking about casting, the only name was Chrissy Metz. Now, why is that relevant? Because here I am, upset that Grant didn't start writing, wanting to rush the process. Chrissy was on a path with the show where it was taking her to a place where she would even be on the radar for the studio to say, that's our choice. If I had tried to push the movie sooner, we would have missed it. Everything was divine timing. All things work together for the good of those that love him and are called according to his purpose. So when you talk about prayer, yo, faith works. I'm telling you, y'all looking at Captain Marvel, don't look at Captain Marvel. That's all made up. Prayer works, faith works, it works.
Well, there comes that word purpose again, and that's kind of woven through a lot of what we said tonight. We started with that, so we'll end with that word as well, purpose. And whenever I talk about films that are inspirational, it always comes back to one of my heroes, which is Frank Capra. And I found a quote that early in his career, Frank Capra was a little bit full of himself, I think is the correct word. And he was told by a friend, because it's always the friends that give you the hard truths. Friends said, Frank, the talents you have are not your own, not self-acquired. God gave you those talents to use for his purpose. So there it comes back to that word purpose again. And I think that's obviously a recurring theme, not only in our conversation, but in the film, about the idea that every person has a purpose. Mm-hmm. So I guess my final question tonight is, what do you see your purpose as an artist? So maybe we'll start with you.
Ooh, man. I would say my purpose in a nutshell is to inspire and to use entertainment in every form to do that. And, that inspiration, one moment of inspiration can change our lives for the better. And I believe in that. And that's what I believe is one of the things that I'm here to do, is to use entertainment as a positive way to make positive change in the culture. From a faith perspective, there are some people that will never go into a church. There are some people that will, never live stream a service, but they will go to a movie theater. They will turn on the TV. And I feel compelled, as part of my purpose, to make content that can inspire them, that can motivate them, and remind them of what's possible. So often in day-to-day life, we're reminded of what's not possible. Entertainment can remind us of, wow, I can become something I do not see. I can go to a place I've never been. And I can change the trajectory of my life by just seeing one piece of entertainment. And that's what I feel really compelled to do as part of my purpose.
Roxann?
That's a very deep question. It really is. I think that entertainment, from the beginning of time, theater really began in the church, began with storytelling and then playing out and acting out and basically trying to make these stories more real than just the page, to come off the page so that people can understand them and also embody the characters that we're talking about. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted to be an actor to begin with, because I wanted to be able to embody things. It's almost like a bit of a sacrifice. In other words, to be able to embody, and I know you feel this because you're so vulnerable, but you really do. You sacrifice yourself often as an actor. You give of yourself and parts of you that you wouldn't show to anybody else. A vulnerability, you open the window to your heart, you're out there, and you're doing that for what reason? Because often you guys can't. And if you witness somebody else doing it, it gives you strength and courage. And again, that that you're not alone, that we all feel really similar things, that we're all human and we have these things in common. And I think my purpose going forward is just really to try to continue doing things that move people. I've done a lot of different shows, some I'm proud of, some I'm less proud of, throughout all the years of television that I've worked on. But I'm really tired of the shock value. I'm tired of the gratuitous sex that's in a lot of things, and things that try to, they want you to stop the television on this versus that, I've been kind of through all of that that's been on television, and I just think, for better or for worse, a platform that's in your homes or a film has a capacity to really move and affect you. We should start using it in the correct way,
Ooh, that is a really big question. And one that I obviously pondered, as we do in our lives. But I have to say, I think it is to love. My purpose is to first love myself, right? Because if I don't love myself now, not only can I not love somebody else, but I can't progress, right? Because we're going to get stuck and we're stagnant in who we wish we could be or who we were before, and we don't move forward. So it's really, I think, about love and self-love, self-care, and then hopefully that can be imparted on everybody else. We're always sort of being told we're too much of this and not enough of that, and I hope that what I do and how I live my life, that people feel loved, that they're reminded how important they are through that love, and hopefully they can love themselves as well. But it is hard because, you do sort of give your heart and you're very vulnerable as an actress, but I've spent my life being vulnerable. And so obviously there's a reason why. Hopefully I can crack that open for other people, and they could feel that they could be more vulnerable, or they could feel the love that is intended for them. Because so, myself included, we have this wall up and we want to be strong and we don't want to be tough, and I have to do this, and men can't cry and men can't feel, and I can't tell you how many people I've cried with in many different places, and I'm happy to do it, just for the record. So if you want to cry,
maybe someone up there will
listen, because being vulnerable and feeling love and giving love is, I think, what we're supposed to be doing. We're made with love. We're made from love, with love, to love. So, yeah.
Well, as Christians, we believe God is love, so what
Yeah.
better way to end the night? As again, prayer is a central theme here, but a lot of this film is sort of about the prayer of petition, asking God for something. In the Christian tradition, there's also prayer of thanksgiving. And in your two books, again, no one's plugging this, just saying, both books offer, both the Hollywood Commandments and This Is Me, they offer a lot of life lessons, but in reading them, there's actually one lesson that they both share. And both of them give one similar piece of advice, that there is an important but often overlooked simple thing to do, and that's just say thank you. I think you both talk about that, saying thank you. So I, just on behalf of the Sheen Center, want to thank you all three for being here tonight. I want to thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Thank you.
And the film opens in theaters. Film opens on theaters on April 17th.
April 17th.
April 17th.
Easter.
So go see
Easter
it.
weekend.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Have a good night,
Thank
everybody.
you. Good night. Oh.